from Point Michelle.
Point Michelle locked.
Michelle in the house.
All right then, Point Michelle locked in. Let's go back to the overseas line. Good night. Yes, good night.
Yeah, good night. Good night, Guada.
Uh-huh. All right, Guada. All right then, let's go. All right then, Guada. All right, we'll check it out, okay?
Yes,
On
we
the...
have a different music on.
All right then. Okay, Guada.
Kairi, Lago Cottage locked.
Lago
Cottage locked in.
Lago.
Leadership matters.
All right then. On the Digicel line, good night. All right then. One more call, Clarence. One more call. Let's go to the overseas line. Good night.
Good evening, Daryl and Mr. Christian. How are you all doing this evening?
Very fine. Very
good.
That's wonderful. New York locked in. Good night.
All right then. So that's it for the roll call.
Daryl, let me just say good night to my usual persons I talk. Mr. Clifford Wallace. I'm sure he's listening.
Yes.
He's glued on, and good night to you.
Yes.
Hope you're doing okay. Vanus and Teacher Vina in Central. Miss Vokline up behind Lubier. And somebody, Marina Shillingford and Haynes Shillingford in Salisbury. Good night to you guys. I know all you locked in and hooked on. I think tonight we're going to have a
very good show.
Very good program tonight. Very good show with the political leader of the Dominican Labour Party with us to discuss and talk to the Dominican people.
All right then.
Let me go. If you love up your PM, somebody make some noise. One man for PM. Skerrit, wave a flag. With something red, with something red. Everything that happens for a reason. One should never question the master's action. He who take and give it is he who appointed for every one of us. He has a chartered curse. He will plan what happens tomorrow. Let the fruits of the labor show. Some people say you're too young to bring progress in the tongue. Do you think, brother Skerrit, you are led by the Spirit? Age is just a number. I want them boys to remember. Do you think, brother Skerrit, you are led by the Spirit? When Jesus was sent to save us, he was just a child. Yet his work was marvelous, so greet them with a smile. It's not you who sent you were sent by God. Those who criticize you just have to ignore. You could never please everybody. Work for set your conscience free. Do your thing by the Spirit. You are led by the Spirit. Somebody make some noise. If you love up your PM, let me see a red rag. Let me go. With something red now. With something red. The measure of a great man is the courtesy with which you treat lesser men. Plain for all to see, you demonstrate good qualities, both here and overseas. I foresee a brighter future with you as a leader. Will the support of the old country, Dominica must sit pretty. No room for complacency, go represent your country. Do you think, brother Skerrit, you are led by the Spirit? Always be a good example, focus on your people. Do you think, brother Skerrit, you are led by the Spirit? When Jesus was sent to save us, he was just a child. Yet his work was marvelous, so pretend with your smile. Yet not you who sent you were sent by God. Those who criticize you, please have them ignored. Continue your stewardship, we love up your showmanship. Do you think, brother Skerrit, you are led by the Spirit? Somebody make some noise.
It's already 12 minutes moving down past the hour of 8 o'clock. You're tuned into the Next Level program live here from the studios of Kairi FM for today, the 22nd day of May 2018. And we say goodnight to the parliamentary representative for the Viecas constituency, who happens to be Prime Minister, the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, the Minister for Finance, Investments, Housing and Lands. Good night, Prime Minister.
Good evening to you, Daryl, and of course to Clarence Christian. I am happy to be in your company. I normally listen to you by live broadcast on the radio and so forth. But I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
All right.
And of course, let me greet my fellow citizens and residents of Dominica, of France, and of course to our wonderful people in diaspora, from all over the world. And I had the opportunity to meet some over the weekend in Miami. So I'm happy to be here this evening. I look forward to constructive and positive engagement with the Dominican Republic.
Prime Minister, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm fine. I don't complain. I don't complain. I don't think it makes sense to complain. You do what you have to do in the circumstances. The task is huge. It's a huge task. It's a mammoth task. I am not only responsible for myself and my family, I'm responsible for the whole country, and but we have to do what we need to do for on behalf of the people. But it has been long days and long hours, especially since the hurricane.
Yes.
But I thank God for life, and I thank God for good health, and these things are important.
How do you do it, Prime Minister? Day in, day out.
The truth is, my source of motivation is the people, and we have to work hard to provide for the people, because everybody in this country, whether you're in the private sector or you are a retired person or you're unemployed or you're a public servant, you depend on the government in one way or the other.
Yes.
In these small economies, the government is really the engine of growth and economic activity. It is the largest consumer of goods and services. It is a major investor in the country, and that can have an impact on the way of life of everybody in the country, every sector in the country, every interest group in the country. So you have to work hard to ensure that you can do your best in the circumstances, and you leave the rest to the Lord. But it is not an easy task. If I would tell you it's an easy task, then I would not be telling the truth. It's a huge task, and but it has to be done, and we are committed to doing it.
All right then. Housing, Prime Minister, it's now your new portfolio. You have been Minister for Housing for a few weeks now. Tell us what is going on in that ministry.
A number of things, a number of very exciting things have been taking place and are taking place within the Ministry of Housing. It's a huge responsibility there, because housing is one of the major priorities in the country. We are doing Daryl major home renovation program. We have assisted, we have deployed resources, financial resources, and also material resources, materials to every village council or every constituency in Dominica. 21 constituencies in Dominica have received financial resources from the government to assist residents with their homes. It's a huge cost to the government. And let me make it very clear, because this is not the responsibility of the government. The government is not obligated to help anyone fix their homes. And the records will show, after major disasters before this government came into office, this wasn't the case. This wasn't the case at all. This wasn't the case at all. This wasn't the case at all. This is it is because, in large measure, of the empathy which the government and the leadership of the country shares with the people. And the philosophy of the Dominica Labour Party and its compassion and love for people. Because we recognize as a government and a party in office that if the government does not step in to help people, many people will not be able to help themselves. Because in respect to the hurricane and the damage it did to many homes, some of us were insured, but the insurance companies have indicated, issued the most popular phrase, underinsured. So somebody who was just relaxing after the hurricane, well, a bit stressed, yes, but comforted over the fact that I've been paying my insurance for 20 years and I've never defaulted my payments, and I expect to get some resources. The assessment on the house is $125,000 in terms of the cost of repairs. And the insurance company comes to tell you you're only entitled to 50 because you're underinsured. And you're retired, or you're a public servant, or you're a private sector, you're unable to go to the banks to take an additional loan. What happens to you? You understand? So we've had to step in to help many families across the country. I mean, so far, we have approved over 60 million EC dollars in cash. Over $60 million in cash to citizens of Dominica.
This is from local resources?
Local resources. That is just to fix homes. And that is outside of the procurement of building materials that we procured in a large quantity, and also procuring from local establishments. We have procured significant sums from local establishments to help with re-roofing.
Yes.
That's just for re-roofing, putting roofs over people's heads, and windows and doors for some people. Over $60 million in cash from local resources. That's not World Bank money, it's not nobody else's money, but from our local resources.
Yes.
And we are committed to providing more, because it is not everybody we have touched so far. So we've been doing this in tranches, but every 10 homes that are covered are 10 less people who will be exposed to the elements. And this is how we must measure the progress. It is not by covering every home. It is by having interventions that are consistent and that are placing people in a better situation now than they were after the hurricane. And so we have been helping the citizens through this means. And if your name hasn't appeared, I give you the assurance that your name will appear. You will get help from the government. So and the cost is increasing. It's a significant cost. And in between this $60 million, we have also built homes with our own local resources for many citizens. And so we have this aspect going on, and the aspects of the sanitation program is still ongoing. We're still building toilets for people, washrooms for people. So that's ongoing. After the hurricane, while the rest of the country was engaged in the relief, in the first week of October, we were talking about resilient homes and discussing the issue of resilient homes. And we signed this contract for 1,000 homes to be built across Dominica. And of course, we started in Point Michelle and the Carnago territory. And the intention is to set up the factory here in Dominica. We have entered into a lease agreement with the developer for lands at Belfast, and the factory will be built, because this is one of the conditions in the agreement, that the factory should be built here in Dominica. So that will be done, and we will see very soon see us descending on many communities across Dominica to building homes. Now, you have these families from Green Valley in Point Michelle who lost relatives and friends, who lost their homes. And these people now will be ushering the hurricane season in a brand new home that they know and, based on advice, can remain in their home if a hurricane were to come. So every family that we put into a home is progress, is a step in the right direction. Because this is one family less that will be homeless. And one family less whose anxiety will be set aside. So we have issue of the 1,000 homes. Since the hurricane, we've also entered into arrangements with the developer that's building the homes in Bellevue-Chopin to build apartments in many communities in Dominica. And we're talking about contracts that have been signed, designs that have been approved, and lands that are already cleared and are in the process of being cleared. So, for example, we've signed agreements with the developer to build 66 apartment units in Grand Fond, and that would cover Rivière Civic and Mont Jean. In La Plaine, 66 apartment units. In Delis, 66 apartment units. And in Grand Fond, we're looking at the government lands and we're acquiring another portion of land belonging to Mr. Lockhart, and we're finalizing that arrangement with him, who is out of state. In Saint-Sauveur, we're building 66 apartment units there. I want to thank Mr. Shillingford. I can't remember his first name, but he used to work at Cable and Wireless. Mr. Shillingford, who has an estate in Saint-Sauveur, for his willingness to sell it onto the state to benefit his fellow residents in Saint-Sauveur. 66 apartment units there. In Castle-Bruce, 66 apartment units there that will provide resilient homes that can withstand a Category 5 hurricane. So you will have 66 families in Castle-Bruce who, when these apartments are handed over to them, will know that they have a safe home to reside in. And we will be doing some 33 units in the Maho constituency. We're looking at placing them in Massac. We're finalizing the location of this. Hillsborough Gardens for the residents of St. Joseph and Layu, 33 units. And in Portsmouth, where we intend to build about 150 to 200 apartment units, we're doing the first phase of 68 units in
Chance?
No, in Cotton Hill? Picard in the Georgetown area. And in Roseau, we are finalizing the acquisition of the lands in Pong, where we will do a first 139. And we'll be looking at additional locations in the city to build the additional apartments, because we intend to build 250 apartment units in Roseau Central to house people. And these units will also have opportunities for shops, commercial activities. So on some of the ground floors, we'll have those things. In Saint-Sauveur, that is a vulnerable community, one of the floors in the apartments will be used as a hurricane shelter, as a community center hurricane shelter. And we're looking to do the same in one of the buildings in Grand Fond. So in case of a hurricane, they will have a safe place for the rest of the community to move in. So over the next few days, and of course, we've signed an agreements, one to reconstruct the petrocasters in Granby, and for the residents in Dubikin Center in Granby. So those petrocasters that were affected, we'll be redoing them in total concrete, and so forth. But we've also signed an agreement to build 63 housing units to house 63 families in the constituency of Granby. 63. That's a significant investment, and we expect work to actually commence in the next week or so. And then you have those petrocasters in Lily Valley. 10 of them will be reconstructed.
10 will be reconstructed in Stock Farm. I believe about 6 or so in Portsmouth. And in Saint-Sauveur, a couple homes that were built there were affected. And in addition to that, we have made available close to $3 million to the Canada territory outside of the home repair program to reconstruct homes that were built by the government that were affected. So those homes will be reconstructed with complete blocks, because some of it was half concrete and half blocks, and the wooden parts of some of the homes were affected. So we'll be reconstructing those homes in full concrete for the residents there. And in the Canada territory, we have assigned 200 homes for the Canada people, similar homes that were built have been built in Point Michel, and 10 of which have been built in the Canada territory in Siniku as we speak.
Yes.
So there are a lot of exciting things happening. And also, Daryl, you would have heard us and seen us sign an agreements with the World Bank about a week or so ago. And one of the agreements was for $40 million package, all of which will go towards housing. $40 million is equivalent to what? 108 million EC dollars.
That is on top of the 60 million already spent.
That's that. All of the monies I'm talking about to you there, in terms of what we're doing here, from local resources.
Wow.
Local resources.
Yes.
You know,
That is going to
and the bulk of it, 99.9% of it, is CBI.
CBI money.
This is the same CBI which the opposition went onto the CBS, where hundreds of millions of people view this program and denigrated the program. But today, the Dominican people are appreciating, even those who oppose the government, are coming to their senses and recognizing that this program is too important to us in this country for it to become a hated thing by the opposition and a thing that is denigrated and attacked. You see, and we always maintain in the government, in the Labour Party, that there are some things in Dominica that we should view from an apolitical stand. And we may have our concerns and their means of legitimately raising our concerns, but we must never allow ourselves as leaders in this country to seek to destroy something that is benefiting every single person. And without the CBI, after this hurricane, we would have been in great difficulties, because your entire economy came to a halt. You were not raising any revenue. You know, so if you're raising no revenue and your expenditure is increasing daily, where would you get the money from? You know, so this is where we are in respect to housing. I give the citizens of this country the assurance that we will do everything humanly possible and the available resources to help them. We have demonstrated that with the amounts of money that we spent. And let's face it, we have a challenge in the country in respect to capacity. Inadequate numbers of tradesmen, skilled men, because roofs, as I've been told, require a particular skill. You know, not anybody who is a contractor can do a roof.
Yeah.
And therefore we have to be very careful as a government who we engage to do roofs. Otherwise, people will do a butcher job and place the citizens and the homeowner in more difficulties and danger than they were on the night of the hurricane. You know, so we have to be careful with this. But every element where the government had certain control, it affected an intervention. So one, people had no money to fix roofs. We fetched money to fix the roofs for people, to provide for the people. Even if we did not have any legal or other obligation to provide for the people, because we've been here. We've had Hurricane David, we have Hurricane Allen, we had many other hurricanes and so forth. But we have not seen that level of support that a government has given to its people in the history of Dominica. whether pre-independence or post-independence. Now, we brought in building materials, and we still bring in building materials to provide to our citizens. And every day, as the days go by, we're procuring from local suppliers. Because our intention, our objective as government is to see how we can cover as many roofs as possible. So we have engaged people to locally to contract to effect the roofs. Mm-hmm. We have also contracted foreign contractors from Trinidad, from St. Lucia,
Cuba,
and then finally now I want to thank the Cuban ambassador and the president of Cuba and the government of Cuba for finalizing the Cuban workers who will be coming to Dominica, so they are now ready to come. The 4 engineers will be coming in next week. We will be facilitating, so we'll be coming next week, and we are now finalizing with to discuss with the government of Cuba, of Venezuela, to assist with the transportation of the first 85 people who will be coming into Dominica to help us in Dominica to fix their homes. Now, these people will be contracted by the government and they'll be paid by the government to assist us in fixing the roofs. Mm-hmm. So we've done all of these things, and to cause things to move faster, we have sent the resources into village councils. Now, normally as the Minister of Finance, under normal circumstances, I would not put in so much money, and the Director Audit always do so. So I have been cautioned by the Director Audits in previous, and I've carried through that advice, that we should not put too much money at one time into the councils.
Yes. Because
they were not structured to administer and to manage these large sums of money. But in the circumstances, we felt it was necessary to provide the resources to the village council so that it could reach the people as quickly as possible, and more people, so that it is not bogged down by the bureaucracy of the public service. Obviously, we have been putting systems in place to ensure the proper accounting and administration of the resources, because every dollar has to be accounted for and must be accounted for properly. But so we've been doing those things. We've been doing those things, and so we hope that with the presence of the Cuban brothers and sisters, we can see more people benefiting in a quicker period of time. But we are signing contracts. I mean, if there is any contracting firm in Dominica who believes that is not engaged for one reason or the other, please come to see us, because we need every single contractor who can put up roofs properly engaged. Yes. Because even in my own constituency, I have some bad roads on the Gilead-Penville side. We started to fix these roads before the hurricane, and the hurricane found us fixing those roads. But there's a couple bad sections, terrible sections, which we need to fix. But I am in a catch-22. The catch-22, they say?
Yes.
Because the people who I would have to get to do these roads,
you have to send
I need them on the roofs. So I have to decide, do I allow the drivers in Penville to drive on these bad roads, or should I fix it and take out the guys from the roofs and so forth? Already we have limited capacity. So you have those situations in those communities. So there's some roads in some communities that are bad. We need to fix them. We have the resources to fix them, but you are fearful that you don't know, pull people out and place the granny and grandpa, in a state of panic and anxiety. The hurricane season upon us, and nobody's fixing the roof and so on. So these are things I believe that the Dominican population need to appreciate and understand. That you have so many tradesmen, so many people who are available, to do these things, and therefore we have to be mindful of that. So I believe this is in a nutshell. We can speak the whole night about housing and the other things that we do in housing, but I will stop there in housing.
Let me just ask you, PM, let me just make one comment. Based on what you outline here on housing, it appears that between now and say probably December next year, some easy $500 million would be spent on housing from local resources, not even counting the World Bank resources. Your
mathematics will not, your RFP going to be far from ours. It's going to be huge, and we said so. Because let's face it, We know Dominica. You know Dominica Clarence. You know Dominica Daryl. And those of us listening know Dominica. We know.
Mm-hmm.
There are many families in Dominica. If this government does not help with a home, we'll never be able to own a home, a decent home. You understand? So we have to do that. I mean, I forgot to mention about Kulibistri. We have to relocate several homes and residents from Kulibistri. And we're in the process of acquiring. We have indicated to the bank, because the National Bank has some land, some 18 acres of land in Makushri, that I've directed to purchase, to acquire, as a location to settle the residents of Kulibistri. Because, in relocating people, you also be mindful of the people's proximity to their farms, and to their old home and to the old place and so on. So you understand it. So you don't want to take people from Kulibistri and bring them to Roseville, bring them to
Point Michelle
or something. Yeah. So we had to be searching, and we had 3 options, and this was one of the better options that was available to resettle the people. And very soon I'll be coming along with the Ministry of Housing to Kulibistri to share with them the plans. But we have already signed the agreements for those homes from the 1,000. So it's a signed agreement. It's a matter now of completing the surveys, which we are about to complete, and to put in the infrastructure and to start those homes and to relocate the residents of Kulibistri. And likewise, we'll be doing the same in Platmaper, close to Colliho, to relocate families from Colliho.
Because I've seen
who have to be relocated.
Some infrastructure being put in place.
That infrastructure started before the hurricane. And of course, we have some 6 or so petrocasters that were affected. We'll be doing 6, redoing the 6 and building additional 4 there. And we have about I think 40 or 50 homes assigned in addition to that to the constituency of Colliho in the first instance.
Yes. But PM, early on, there was also some relief given in terms of duty-free concessions on building materials. That is still ongoing for a period.
Yeah, that's still ongoing, I believe, up until mid-June. Mid-June. The extension is for mid-June or thereabouts, yeah.
Yes. We have made all these strides in housing. I mean, we had the housing revolution. This is the government that has done the most in housing, in probably the entire Caribbean. Are we prepared for the upcoming hurricane season?
Well, we're preparing. We're preparing. We've had several meetings thus far. At the committees level, we have several committees within the National Emergency Planning Organization, NEPO. So within that is made up of several committees. The committees have been meeting. We have had meetings at the cabinet level with the various state agencies. We've also had 2 meetings at the NEPO level. We had one last week and we had one today. I must say that we have seen great strides on the part of the various committees in taking necessary action which they need to take to prepare the country for the next hurricane season. And of course, one of the major challenges is the issue of shelters. In some communities that was a bit of a challenge because some of the shelters would have been damaged by the hurricane or no longer structurally sound. But I want to commend the emergency shelter committee for the efforts. And what we're doing in some communities is to solicit the understanding of private home owners whose homes are sound enough to make those homes available as hurricane shelters. So we'll look forward to the continued understanding of the general public in that regard. So that's being done. From a security standpoint, there's systems in place. From a health standpoint, we have put in systems in place. From food and general supplies. From evacuation plans. So the number of efforts that have been made, and I believe very soon, NEPO, the ODM will speak to the public and to indicate to them where we are with the various interventions, various plans that we're putting in place and have put in place to prepare Dominica for the hurricane season. And obviously, preparation for the hurricane season is also an individual family matter, and each family in this country, every citizen in this country, must avail themselves to the information available and to prepare their families, because while the government will be responsible for preparing the country for any disaster, any hurricane, we also have a responsibility as families, as communities, to prepare ourselves also. There are things that we can do. There's a ravine at the back of our home, we should clear it. There is a tree that is a potential hazard, we should trim it, prune it. We have to get utensils to collect water. Check our windows. If our window is not sturdy, then you have an opportunity to replace it. You see. So there are a number of things that we can do as a community. There are old fridges and stoves in the ravine that will cause blockage, or there's a tree that fell after Maria, which is still in the ravine in your community. You don't have to wait for government to take it out for you. Let us come together as residents and cut the tree, and get it cleared, because at the end of the day, it's going to affect you who are residing there. So the government will play its part. We have started the clearing of major ravines. You see a significant effort at dredging the rivers across the country taking place. Really massive undertaking of dredging of rivers to mitigate against flooding. So we're doing everything that we can do, or we should do as a government to prepare ourselves. We have to continue to pray that no hurricane or storm make landfall in Dominica. But we also have to prepare ourselves in a physical sense. And I am calling every citizen, do not wait to hear what the government is doing. Ask your community, what are we doing? Ask your family, what are we doing? What do we need to do? We have to educate ourselves, and follow guidance and instructions from ODM, the Office of Disaster Management, and from NEPO, when they advise us on what we need to do as residents and citizens to prepare ourselves for the hurricane season.
You mentioned that making of private homes available, and some time ago you said that you would make your own private home in Vegas available for your neighbors and friends, and you were taken to task for that.
Well, you must never argue with a fool, why would somebody take us to task? There's some people who have really lost their way in this country. They've lost every common sense. It is, you almost have to ask yourself, are these people well? What is wrong with myself making my home available for somebody else? Anybody, what is wrong with that? Is it that I should not make it available because I'm the Prime Minister, or you're not happy making it available, or whatever? Why should I have a home where I could cause my family and friends and relatives and fellow residents in my community to be safe, and to have it closed and people on the streets? Come on. And the NEPO and ODM are asking us, if we have our homes and can make our homes available. What is wrong with that? But we will put systems in place. We'll appoint a shelter manager, an assistant manager, and I have a team in Vegas that will oversee and assist people in transporting them if they require to be transported. We will be taking note of all the vulnerable people in Vegas to ensure that we can account for them before the hurricane and during the hurricane, if at all, God forbid. So we'll be doing what we have to do for our residents in there, and we'll do it with our willing heart. Those who do not love or care for people can continue to criticize what the government is doing for and behalf of the people. And, I don't really lose sleep over these comments, really.
PM, I see a major shelter being built down in Layo, full force. Are there any plans to build similar shelters coming years?
Sure, of course.
Over the country?
Of course. The shelters being built in Layo is financed with a loan from the Caribbean Development Bank. So the government contracted a loan some years ago. That's way before Maria. And that has been built, and it will serve the residents of Layo principally. But of course, residents of St. Joseph and Hillsborough Gardens can also make use of it in the event that they require a place, and it will have the appropriate washrooms and showers and kitchenette and so forth to provide for the people, and storage. You know, what we have done a couple of things. With the funds from the European Union, we have asked that they assign some monies to build 2 hurricane shelters, and the idea is to build what we call regional hurricane shelters. And I've also mandated Mr. Cecil Shillingford to engage the American firm which built the ODM headquarters, because the ODM headquarters was designed to withstand a Category 4 hurricane. It withstood a Category 5. And the whole idea is that these will be smaller ones will be built in many communities that are vulnerable. And the idea is to build the concrete platform, and the other components will be prefabricated in the United States of America and then shipped in Dominica and set up. So we intend to have in Marigot, for example, a regional hurricane shelter. In Granby, a regional hurricane shelter. In Portsmouth, a regional hurricane shelter. You know, and Roseau, you'll have a major one. You understand? So the idea is to look at areas where we can place regional hurricane shelters. So if you have a regional hurricane shelter in Marigot, the folks from Concord can go into the hurricane shelter, like we do in the United States. People travel miles and miles and miles to go to the football stadium, you know, or to the basketball stadium. So this is what we're seeking to do. And in some communities where you have a peculiar challenge, is to build smaller hurricane shelters. So this is what we will be doing. Because the whole intention going forward is to ensure that we stop the use of schools as hurricane shelters, because that disrupts the resumption of classes, because people stay in the schools for a pretty long time after the hurricane, and that can be a challenge. So we're trying to move away from having schools as hurricane shelters. No, these things won't happen. All will not happen now, but certainly by next year you will see a number of those shelters established across the country.
Yes, definitely. Now, in terms of schools, we don't have anybody left at schools in terms of shelters post-Maria.
No. Every school has been cleared, and has been cleared for a while now. We built what we call transitional homes in some areas, and in some other areas we rented homes for people who were in the shelter. But all of the shelters have been cleared of residents. So every school in Dominica, and this is something you see. Sometimes in Dominica, I get the impression that the vast majority of us take things for granted. You know, we take things for granted, and we have the attitude, oh well, you know, this must be done. But you know, these things were never done before. You know, a number of things that this government has done, this party has done, were never done in Dominica before. You know, and I think sometimes we take things for granted. So we send thousands of our youngsters to universities. We created access to the state college. When we came into government, only 7% of our high school graduates had access to the college. Now we have set the platform for 100%. And next week, the government is going to clear all outstanding fees owed by students to the state college up to May of 2018. So all the fees that students owe to the college, the government is going to give the college one check and clear it and start at zero with you. So that will be done next week by the Minister of Finance and Cabinet. Okay? But people take this for granted. And listen to me, my friends in Dominica. How many of our brothers and sisters did not attend school? Not because they did not pass the common entrance or they were not bright, but because your parents, our parents, couldn't afford to send them to school. And there was no parliamentary representative, or pal rep as we call them, in short, who were reaching out to help us. But today we have that. Today we not only pay the tuition for our students, we're also helping them with transportation. These things will not happen, my brother. Now, almost 100% of high school students are provided with free transportation to school. With free transportation to school. I was just in Granby last week at the Granby Primary School, where we will be providing every student who's attending the Granby Primary School, students from Granby and Peachland, with all the uniforms come September. Pay the fees, the $50 every month for all of the students who need to attend primary and preschool. So these are the things that we're doing, and people take it for granted. Now, when you speak to independent observers, or when they express their views about Dominica, they're telling you what an extraordinary effort this government made to get all our students back into school in record time. In record time. And this is important. Likewise, you will have the opposition trying to criticize the government for there still being blue tarpaulins on people's roofs. But my brother, in Miami,
yes,
I flew over Miami over the weekend, and there are still many homes with blue tarpaulins. As a matter of fact, they even sending back the Army Corps to put new tarpaulins for people's roofs instead of new roofs. And compare this to a country that this economy, the state of Florida's economy, is about 100 to 1,000 times better than ours. And it is not because the government does not love people, it has not completed this thing, because there are challenges. There are challenges. And notwithstanding our challenges, where are we now? And when you look at our response to this disaster, those countries that were affected by the hurricane did not have to do with rivers overflowing the banks. They didn't have to do with trees and all these things, debris blocking every single street in their country.
Yes.
They didn't have to do this thing. They have to clear roads. They didn't have to build bridges and crossings for people to come from one village to the other. And we had to spend time clearing these things. And tens of millions of dollars spent just clearing and cleaning. The sheer cost of dredging these rivers, my brother, could build many homes for many people in Dominica. But can we just say that there is no money to be made in dredging the rivers and leave the rivers as they are or as they were? So you may not be seeing that, my friends. You may not see the dollars, how many dollars, sitting on rocks and stones in the rivers. But every bucket of sand and stone that is picked up by these excavators is money.
Has a cost. Yeah.
There's a cost to it.
Yeah.
Every dump truck you see hauling the material out, there's a cost. So it's a huge cost, and these rivers are massive.
Yes.
Massive. You go to the Rosa Valley at Shawford, at the back of these homes, and the Rosa River. The level of siltation in the Rosa River, many people did not even realize there was a wall on the riverbank there.
Yeah.
Because that was always high. And the depth of this thing. So it's significant more money. You go to Colibistry, Collie Ho, Canefield, Grand Bay, Peachland, the Melvin Hall River.
Yeah.
You something, and many rivers in between. And it's a huge cost, my friends. But people don't see those things. So what do I do as the Minister of Finance? What do I say to the cabinet? That there's no money to dredge rivers and we're not going to dredge rivers because it's a waste of money to dredge rivers? So we have to appreciate this thing, because without dredging these rivers, it places a major risk and hazard to all of us. Because the amount of money we spend will be spending in just cleaning and clearing. I could give every Dominican $1 million or more. The amount of money we spend on clearing and cleaning and dredging our rivers, I could give 72,000 of us $100,000 or $100,000 or more, we spend a lot of money. It's increasing. It's increasing. It's I'm saying it's increasing significantly, but we have to do those things. We have to do those things. But you may not see those things. I mean, so the schools are back in place. As you know, we have certain commitments to build new schools. So we're fixing some of the schools that have been affected. So we have placed a roof back on La Plaine, in Vickers and some other schools. And Digicel is also helping us in the Cassie Bruce and Siniku area, and the Concord Primary School and the Lighthouse Primary School. But we intend to build a number of new schools.
Yes.
A number of new schools will be built. The candidates, for example, have already committed to helping us build some schools. And they are, I believe, dailies. The Canadians are $5 million. Canadian, we have put in the Mount John Primary School, the Granby Primary School, the Dailies Primary School, the Salisbury Primary School, and the Will Strathmore Stevens Primary School. That's from the Canadian government. The Chinese government has also agreed to finance some secondary schools, and I think some about $15 million US. And we have submitted them about 7 schools, including the Goodwill Primary Secondary School, for complete reconstruction and so forth. But those schools certainly will begin next year, God's willing. But those schools will be built to withstand hurricanes. We built, with the climatic conditions in mind and so forth. So these will be new schools. But it's also interesting that the Granby Primary School was built with funds from the Canadian. At the time, the current Prime Minister's father, Pierre Trudeau, was Prime Minister of Canada. And it is just by coincidence that the Granby School will be reconstructed, because Granby School primary school, I believe, was constructed in 1971. It is just by coincidence that the new school in Granby will be constructed with Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, some 47 years later.
And a man from Vickers at the helm again.
So this is what this is what will be happening there.
Yes.
Okay. But there's still some work to be done in many of the schools, and we continue that, and we're in next weeks. But certainly all of the works which need to be done in terms of repair works will be done well in advance of the commencement of the new school year in September.
All this money spent on housing, infrastructure, government has still been able to set aside over $150 million towards the construction of an airport. Guys came to Parliament and thought, yeah, they had you. They got you. And then when you explained it, nobody is able to say anything.
Because, you see, we've always maintained that people can make accusations against this government about this and about that. But the government can always and has always been able to account for monies entrusted to it. Okay? Monies entrusted to it. And so when the opposition leader believed that, saying that we can account for $150 million, that, so on, where's the $150 million? He thought that he caught us.
Because he said he has a bombshell.
A bombshell.
He had a bombshell on radio.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah, bombshell. Yeah. Somebody must have gone and do some maths for him and so forth, or somebody in his system and so on, who is not sufficiently knowledgeable over the facts. You see what I'm saying? But if the guy was genuine and serious, he could have come to the minister's office and say, hey, look, boss, I see you have this and you have that. So where is this? Where is that? But, so we were able to respond to him, with facts, and to say that the government has set aside 149 million EC dollars to go towards the international airport. And we had indicated to the Parliament and to the citizens of Dominica that the government was going to set up an airport development fund, and we will be crediting this account with $5 million US every month, and we have remained committed to that. So by the end of this month, May, we will have approximately $162 million EC in the International Airport Development Account. And this is the first time that any government has shown a seriousness towards building international airport. Because governments have talked about it. Government have, as the opposition did, a few days before election, land a plane on a screen in Lago.
Yeah.
And said they're gonna build an international airport, but they never had the money for it. You understand? They never had the money for it.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of Dame Eugenia Charles, may his soul rest in peace, who had the commitment of Reagan to do some earth movement for us, and Mr. James wrote to the United States government, tell them don't come because they'll be interfering in elections in Dominica. This is the only government. This is the government that brought in night landing in Dominica.
Yes.
The Labour Party.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? And we were well on our way towards the construction of the airport. And as I've indicated to the Parliament and Dominicans, there is a friendly government that has indicated to us its willingness to support us in the construction of the international airport. The specific area of support and the amount of support will be determined by both parties. And that we would have taken a concessionary loan for the balance. But we were building up our funds to see how far we can take it on our own, and to see if we could build it on our own.
Yes.
So with the $162 million which we will have by the end of this month, we can build a runway. You understand?
Yeah.
We can build a runway, because the initial estimates we had for the first phase of the airport, which involves the excavation, because that with a lot of work and so forth, and building a runway, is about $90 million US. And if I have the runway, my brother, I can just put two containers at the airport and call it terminal building and planes land. And once I have the aeronautical equipment and the radar and so forth, I don't know fancy building call a terminal building. When we have money, we'll build it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I mean, you have in countries where you have container villages, container towns.
Yes.
I take the containers, I cut it up, I put air conditioning in it, and we put sheet rock in it, and we nice it up for you. You never know it's a container, my brother.
Mm-hmm.
So we have it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We have the money to do it. And so once we settle the issue of housing, because we now, the only reason why we're not pursuing it now, because let's face it, you have men who and our citizens who have no homes to sleep in. We have to now put them in homes. We have to cover their homes, stabilize the situation, and then we will deal with the international airport. And we intend very soon to go back to the international airport. Likewise, we will build a new port, a new container port, and likewise we will build a cruise village to accommodate the ferry and the cruise ships that are coming to Dominica, and to have all the duty free. And one of the things we will be doing on this cruise village is to set up a duty-free supermarket, because a lot of the French people from Guadeloupe and Martinique usually come to us to shop, and if we can get them to come and shop the duty-free, they will shop more and help the economy. So there are a number of things that we're looking to do, but certainly when we stabilize the issue of housing and so forth, we'll go back to the finalization of the international airport, matters relating to the international airport, because we believe in the long term, the international airport is critical to the country.
But not only this, not only having 162 million now, but remember the country still have to pay a loan of $140 million, which was taken allegedly for an international airport.
It wasn't for the airport, as you know. I
explained what it was, how it was used.
From your own reports of the director of audit. It was never for the airport. It was taken under the guise of the airport, but men know what they were going to do with the money. People know what they were going to do with the money. So this is where we are directly in respect to education. And also say, I mean, we announced that we will be setting up after the hurricane a special employment program. Okay, because a number of our citizens and residents would have lost their jobs after the hurricane. So far, we have placed 244 people, right? 244 people under the Special Employment Program. So 244 people who lost their jobs after the hurricane are now receiving a salary paid for by the government of Dominica. And very soon we'll place another batch of people who have applied. So 244 thus far, keeping to our promise of engaging those who will be affected. And there's another 42 that we have placed under the NEP. And by the way, you see the massive launch of the NEP Marigot today. And I want to commend all of the folks who have availed themselves. Marigot is ours. Marigot is ours to keep clean, to keep beautiful, and to develop. And all I'm saying to Blue Marigot that the government is with you and continues to be with you to helping you through your challenges. $1.5 million sent to the village council to help with fixing your roofs and fixing your homes. Once we well on the way we spending this 1.5, an additional amount will be transferred to help more people in Marigot. 1.4 or so million dollars was transferred to the village council of Coolibistry for Salisbury, Monratchet, and Coolibistry. Once we able to consume most of this, an additional tranche will be sent across there. So we looking out for everybody, and we're looking out for everybody. Even when the elected reps in those constituencies, primarily, they don't care about people. They don't bother about people. You know what I mean? How could you be a member of parliament, my brother, and you do not feel for the misery of your people? You have senior citizens, you have people who can't help themselves under tarpaulin, and you're not reaching out to them. You're not reaching out. The same way you can write the government, the same way you can write all kind of foolish letters to the international community, on all sorts of salacious, sensational, unfounded, baseless, derogatory things. You're telling me you cannot pen a letter to the government asking for help for your people? So look, Prime Minister, I have visited my constituents. I visited 25 homes. I brought in a contractor with me, and we have the estimates, and I have taken the liberty of getting some invoices from the local suppliers of building materials. And please find attached the invoices and the estimates, and I'll be grateful for whatever assistance you can provide to these 25 families in Marigot, or 25 families in Salisbury, or 25 families Rosal North or Rosal South who require help. What is wrong with that? That is what a parliamentary rep supposed to do. That is what a parliamentary rep must do. That is what a parliamentary rep should do. Even myself, as busy as I am, I go from a constituent from time to time to ensure that the program is going okay. You understand? And so you have to do these things, and there are no excuses for not looking out for your people. So your house covered, and so chupul the rest. But you don't worry.
It has been said that's like going to a political fish market, PM.
Nah, because you see, these guys in opposition have not come to serve people. They come to look for a job. They come for other things other than serving the people. And this is why the member for Roseau Central could no longer, in his conscience, stay with them. And he wrote the leader of the opposition a letter in May last year, drawing his attention to the concerns he had. You understand? And you see, since the member for Roseau Central declassified the letter, Linton stopped talking about the letter, because he doesn't want people to know what is in the letter. You understand what I'm saying? So this is why he couldn't, the member for Roseau Central just couldn't remain with them. Because you come in to make life better for your constituents, to help them, to work with them. And to tell me that you're not writing to the government, but you can write 10-page letter to World Bank and to OECS and to CARICOM and all sorts of foolishness. And you tell me you cannot go to find grass and Overgutter and Sam's Gutter and Monkey Hill, and to say that these people need help. They need help. But after the hurricane, you've had 2 or 3 radio funds for yourself.
Yes.
And you can never count for it. Anyway, but, it's just sad. It's very sad, that the way these people behave. Very, very, very sad.
You have mentioned PM accounting for money, and government prides itself on accounting for every cent made available to it. What about guys who get money for constituency offices and we can't find the offices anywhere?
Well, it's unfortunate. You see, a lot of people, talk about accountability and transparency and good governance. But they believe that these things should only reside with the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. Mm-hmm. You see, it doesn't apply to anybody else in the country. But how could you receive monies for constituency office and not have one, not to utilize it? I mean, I have my constituency office as Prime Minister. I also had an office in Tebow and Penville. After the hurricane got the one in Penville affected, so the roof was blown. I was renting a building there, and I held an office day in the school. I saw 122 people from Penville there at the school. So so these guys are not, and my office is functional. We have staff there. They're open, and I have held office days there. Sometimes people from all over Dominica come to my constituency office. I am not there every Thursday because everybody knows on my own schedule. But I go there from time to time and I make use of it. But it is accessible to the people, But it's crazy. It tells you that these guys do not have the stamina, they do not have the acumen, they don't have the interest, they do not have any of the characteristics to be a representative. Zero. Because being a representative of the people, you must be able to sit down and listen to them, hear them. They must have access to you. And it's unfortunate. But you, Mr. Linton, was in Manhattan, while men scrunting for their survival in Dominica. The man in Manhattan taking pictures, with a new suit he got. The man in Manhattan with his 2 hands in his pocket. You know what I'm saying? And smiling, and they all go Photoshop with his smile and so forth. And I'll go Photoshop with his picture and so on. And the man in Manhattan, my brother. And men in Mary got catching hell.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Men we there in Tarpaulin Road in Dominica, man, collecting water, look at rain falling, we crying and so on. And Linton up in eating steak. And taking pictures in the streets of Manhattan. That's close to where Trump lived there on Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, look, I have a photograph on
the man walking up there, taking pictures in front of Trump Tower. and men, we here in Dominica, my brother. All hurricane struggle. And the man went to meet the Polisarios.
Yes.
He say the Polisarios are coming to Dominica with money and supplies. Up to now, Linton cannot tell us where the money from the Polisario is and where the supplies the Polisario sent. You see what I'm saying? So it's amazing this fellow. But this is what they call it of the words in Dominica, and unfortunate, but these guys are not serious.
Yes.
Very sad.
Right before Maria, you presented what was described as probably the best budget in the history of Dominica, and things were set to take off, a number of infrastructure projects, but all of these, some of them had to be put on hold. Are some of these going to come back in the upcoming budget?
Oh, yes. Obviously, as all of us recognize, priorities had to change. And things that we plan on doing, for example, the indoor sports facility would have started by now.
Yes.
We're committed to this because it's important for sports development and for the youth in Dominica. But nonetheless, we will certainly come back to it. We have not taken off the drawing board completely. It has just been lowered a bit. The Rose Enhancement Project, so the number of critical projects, the whole community enhancement projects, reconstructing of all the community roads. We had started this. Several roads, dozens and dozens of roads were done across Dominica. And the intention was in this year, financial year, to completely reconstruct all the community roads in Dominica. We had scheduled to eradicate completely pit latrines in Dominica. We had over $10 million assigned to this in the budget. So there are a number of critical and important projects that were all carried for the 2017, 2018 financial year. But unfortunately, Maria changed this. But we're committed to this. As you know, the West Coast Road, the bridges were already approved by the government of China.
We got started already.
They actually started already. That was affected by the hurricane. Very soon they'll return there. As a matter of fact, they have had personnel there for the last couple of months, putting systems in place to welcome back the workers. The York Valley bridges, it has recommenced, and hoping by the end of this month it will be completed. So there are a number of very important things that we were doing, and we had intended to do in this financial year, but that has been affected by the hurricane. But we're committed to this. But the important thing, since the hurricane, we have had all of the major hotels under construction. The Kempinski Hotel there has recommenced. The Marriott has commenced, since the hurricane. Jungle Bay is well on its way,
yes.
To open early next year. So Fort Young has taken the opportunity to advance its redevelopment of the Fort Young, breaking down the old section of Fort Young and building new rooms and added rooms, taking to about 100 rooms or thereabout. So the number of positive things happening in the economy. Our farmers have not only gone back to the farm, but we've started to export. The hucksters are back in the trade. This is amazing. The cruise ships came to Dominica in January. The hurricane was in September. And the amount of time we spent cleaning and the extraordinary effort of the Minister for Tourism and the Permanent Secretary, Ms. Prevo, and their staff, in clearing the sites and putting systems in place so that when the cruise ship come to do their own auditing, because the cruise ships came to do their auditing to find out whether Dominica was ready for business. And they made a determination that Dominica was ready for business, and cruise ships started coming in January. These are things that we have to point out, that positive things happen in the country. We have been able to install many bridges. Literally weeks and days after the hurricane, bridges were up in Fombaro here, and Castle Comfort, connecting back the communities. These are extraordinary interventions. You understand what I'm saying? Every road we connected. Doasco pushed to connect water to the majority of the country. Domlec, with an intervention of the government, pushing them, and the magnificent leadership of Mrs. Mackenzie, extraordinary leadership. Dominic is pushing. Things are better this week than they were last week. We were able to pour in over $18 to $20 million to the farmers. Yes, there were some challenges that have been addressed, but we must not allow this to overshadow the only intent and the purpose and the benefits of these interventions. It's amazing. You understand? It is amazing what has been done.
You just mentioned farmers, and I wanted to go into agriculture next. Yes. And the initial first, one of the first things done after Maria was to get some help for the farmers, and more help is coming with money with the agreements just signed with the World Bank. The new Minister for Agriculture, the Deputy Prime Minister, is on an aggressive Meet the Farmers tour and has been going all over the country meeting with the farmers. What is the status of agriculture post-Maria?
I think we have done a remarkable job in agriculture. A remarkable job. First of all, we had to clear many farm roads. There's still a couple that need to be cleared, but work is ongoing. I think we're in the Gorman area in Salisbury. Clearing the roads and creating a bypass there for the farmers. So we've done a lot of work. I really must commend The farmers of Dominica, my friend. The farmers of Dominica who literally days after the hurricane went back to the farm. I mean, this is extraordinary. You go to the markets, you see the extent of the agricultural produce, since the hurricane, and with the funds that we provided, the seedlings and the seeds that we provided. I mean, potatoes, for example, the white potatoes, is serious business in Dominica now, and many women were empowered with this program from in Girondel, in Belleville Chopin, in the heights of Woodfordale. I mean, and people have made some money because all of the potatoes are selling. You understand? They are selling, and people are buying them, and farmers are making money. So really and truly, the farmers have really demonstrated the commitment to agriculture, the commitment to the country, and the commitment to feeding the country. And we have started to export. We started to export agricultural produce last year. This November, December, we started exporting agricultural produce or items planted after the hurricane. We started exporting, and we're exporting this year. The hoxes are back out there. You understand? And the volumes are increasing as the weeks go by. This is great stuff. And the abattoir, about 4 weeks after the hurricane, 3 to 4 weeks after the hurricane, the abattoir was back in operation. And it has been in operation since then. And I really want to commend the efforts of the manager there, Mr. Etienne, because his real commitment and be able to mobilize his staff and walked from dailies to come down to the abattoir and to take ownership of the abattoir. This is extraordinary. That's the kind of spirit we need in Dominica. That kind of commitment, that kind of love and passion for what we do. And with that love and passion, my brothers and sisters, we can certainly overcome the challenges beset upon us by the hurricane. But we have to love our country. We have to be committed to it. So we're making progress and so on. We, as you know, $25 million have been earmarked, and we've signed an agreement with the World Bank, US dollars, that will be invested in agriculture. We have an additional 11 million euros from the European Union that will be invested in agriculture. We get in the support of our agricultural partners and ICA and the FAO, for example. We'll be getting some support from the FAO for beekeepers, beekeepers, and also we'll be importing a large quantity of coconut seedlings with the help of Kairi, some 40,000 coconut seedlings. I've been also advised that with the help of the Israeli government, we'll be importing some I believe about 8,000 citrus plants ready to plant. And as you know, Israel has some really good agricultural practices and the use of technology in the farm. So we're very grateful to the Israeli government for that. And I've been advised by the permanent secretary that these 8,000 citrus plants will arrive in Dominica at the end of May of this year, and the coconuts, the 40,000 coconut seedlings, in June of 2008. And of course, the funds at the aid bank continue to be available at 2%.
Yes. We
reduced it from 3% to 2% since the hurricane, and farmers are in fact taking advantage of that. The white potato seedlings we got came from the government of Canada, and we're very grateful to them for that. So there are a lot of things happening in agriculture, and you will see more exciting things, because what the new minister and the government has agreed to is to reposition agriculture with these investments, address some of the systemic challenges in agriculture, restructure agriculture, and to focus on some fundamentals and so forth. And one of the things we'll be doing in agriculture, of course, the minister will speak in more details to this as the weeks go by, is to have a special arrangement where we'll provide some added and special and differential focus to the commercial farmers. Okay? And while we continue to provide support to the subsistence farmers. subsistence farmers. So we will be articulating in the next weeks this whole approach to agriculture. But it's exciting times. The minister for agriculture has been going out to meet with the farmers in various communities. I know he was in the valley today, meeting the farmers and hearing from them, because it's important for the engagement and to hear from them, and for they to hear from us, and we can share ideas and information as to how we can move agriculture forward. But agriculture is going to be a very exciting and exciting time in the next months and years to come.
I know you're a farmer yourself, and you're producing some of the biggest pumpkins I've seen around the place.
Some of my friends have told me these things just grow, and I'll say I'm the one planting. But yeah, you plant and you do sell, and you do make a little money. I just like agriculture. I love the farm. I love the soil, and I just plant. And it's great.
PM, we're going to open up the lines in a bit.
I am your guest. You're my host. So I find me.
All right then. So Clarence, we're going to open up the lines.
Yeah.
So we're live here on the Next Level program with the Prime Minister, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, the parliamentary representative for VCAS. And I believe we have our first caller who is calling in on the telephone. Good night.
Good night, PM.
Is that Tony Astefan, Senior Counsel?
Yes, it is, comrade.
What's happening?
Wonderful hearing you, comrade. It was really wonderful hearing you. And I wanted to get in early to really take the opportunity to thank you for your extraordinary leadership and work and the personal sacrifice that I know you're making for this country. Your high level of tolerance with your friends in the opposition. But PM, I have some questions I want to ask you. There are about 3 or 4 short questions. Perhaps I can just ask them all in one and then hang up for you to answer. I can do it one by one at your convenience. But I am interested to know, following the United Nations donor conference, just how many or how much of the pledges from the international community have or are being materialized. 2, we hear so much talk about we being sort of thrown aside by international organizations, and at the same time we're hearing signings of 65 million, whatever have you, with the World Bank. What is your relationship and the government's relationship with the World Bank and the other financial institutions that are assisting us? The third one is creed. I understand a transitional team may be put in place fairly soon. If you can give just a little information about the purpose of the creed and the funding of the creed. And the final question I would like to hear from you on is the status, the strength of the CIP program, because I heard you previously and tonight speak of it. And the final question is, what do you see as the most difficult task for you personally as Prime Minister and Minister of Finance in the coming years, transitioning Dominica from where it was before Maria and to the climate resilient country, that you are hell-bent on constructing? And having said that, let me just say to you, Prime Minister, have a good night, and I will listen to your responses off here.
PM, you have 5 questions.
I was trying to write them down. Let's take. I may not take him in order in which Mr. Astefan raised them, but there's a is a framework document on the CREED, the Climate Resilience Execution Agency of Dominica, a framework document which I believe is has been published on the government website, so it is accessible to anyone who wishes to read it and to know more about the CREED in terms of the framework of the CREED. And on page 3 of the document, it speaks to the aims and objectives of the CREED. And I'll read some of it to you. It says there on page 3, the agency's strategic aims are to help make Dominica a climate resilient nation that is better able to thrive in the face of future natural disasters. And it says that the agency has 3 intended outcomes. 1, Dominica will be more resilient to future natural disasters, able to withstand future hurricanes or earthquakes with a minimum of damage to lives and livelihoods. 2, Dominica's current recovery from the impact of Hurricane Maria will be as swift, transparent, and cost-effective as feasible, and all reconstruction will be built back better to the extent possible. And 3, all public organs, private sector, and civil society will be better equipped to manage disasters and recovery from disaster in the future. So, and it goes on to speak about coordination. So the CREED will assist the government in coordinating its response to the disaster, and also implementing certain interventions approved by the cabinet. Because we recognize, my friends, that with a small country like ours, with limited capacities in some areas, we were going to need some focus in terms of our response to the disaster. And if we're to build back better and to build a resilient nation, certainly there's going to be need for focus. And one has to understand that in the public service as it is now, the public servants have to carry on the duties as were the case before the hurricane. And now they're also charged with the task of responding to this hurricane. And it's going to be impossible. So we felt that there will be certain interventions which will be better coordinated and implemented by a vehicle and an institution that is dedicated to that effort. So this is really where the CREED is. The funding for the CREED is coming from, in large measure, from the government of the United Kingdom. They have committed to financing, in large measure, the staffing of the CREED. The Canadian government has provided the technical and financial support for the drafting of the legislation, and we have now a first draft of the legislation. We are now recruiting. We have put in a search team that will be recruiting the staff, especially the CEO in the first instance, to head the CREED and so forth. So the idea is that, as it is now, the CREED is a unit within the Office of the Prime Minister. With the legislation, we'll go to Parliament to pass the legislation and cause the CREED now to have its own legal standing. So it will be a statutory entity by an act of Parliament, with all of the oversight mechanisms in place as required by the Constitution. So this is where it is. I can say to you, caller, that this CREED, this agency, this idea of the agency has received and continues to receive tremendous support from the international community. Tremendous support. And they have been holding our hands tightly and walking us along the path towards creating a resilient nation. The World Bank is putting in place for us sort of a transition team. So once the CREED comes in, then it will take over some of the projects that we would assign to it that are being financed by the World Bank. In respect to our relationship with the World Bank, I can tell you, my brother, as I have said publicly in the presence of the director for the Caribbean and Latin America, and I said publicly, I feel that this bank is like the Dominica Bank. I mean, the extraordinary support and guidance that the World Bank has been providing to us, especially since that hurricane. I mean, when I went to the World Bank headquarters in Washington, D.C., in October, very early October, to meet with them to negotiate this package of $115 million. When I indicated to him I would like to come to see them in Washington, you recall I said publicly that they had committed about $60 million to us. Mm-hmm. And I said to them publicly, I am not coming to Washington if I am not going to leave Washington with $100 million. And they hurt me because they told me they will listen to the press briefings every day. And when I went to the bank, I mean, the level of support from the president, the vice president, and the entire staff of the World Bank up to today. The World Bank has sent in staff here to assist us in agriculture, in housing, in finance, in planning, and they'll be sending additional staff to us. They're serving as an intermediary on a number of other areas. I mean, it's extraordinary. There's a seamless relationship between ourselves and the World Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, the Kuwaiti Fund. The Kuwaiti Fund has sent emissaries here to us to speak to me and to say, look, we want to provide some concessionary financing to you in Dominica. We want to help you. We want to provide you with some financing. I mean, so we have the absolute support from the World Bank and the financial institutions. I mean, people are really reaching out to assisting us. I mean, even in regards to the schools from the Canadian government. I mean, last week Wednesday, they were here in Dominica. The Canadian officials and the CDB were here to visit the schools and to start the process for the feasibility studies for the schools. I mean, it speaks to the commitment. So the World Bank, for example, Caller, increased its commitment to us from $60 to $65 million, which was committed to us before I went to Washington, to 115. As a matter of fact, when I got to Washington, they told me that they're going to prepare a special submission to the board of directors to provide us with a grant of $50 million, and that took it up to the 115. You understand? So we are very committed to this. And also give you a breakdown, Caller, of the commitments of the World Bank. Agriculture, US $25 million. Housing, US $40 million. Infrastructure, mainly for the roads in the east, in the Canandaigua territory in Cassie Bruce and Pont Cassé, $31 million US. Energy, $17.2 million. And social protection, US $1.8 million. And that doesn't include all of the technical support that they provided to us. They've been providing to us since the hurricane. So the list can go on. The United Kingdom, the government of China. I mean, the United Kingdom has committed since the hurricane. That is outside of the 25 million pounds for the Granby Road from the Loubier to Bagatelle Granby Road. 25 million pounds. And so far we have indicated to them that we would like it to be assigned to the water sector, to building more resilient water systems. So there's a huge commitment. Obviously, Caller, these funds will come in gradually because every agency in every country has its own procurement rules. The World Bank, for example, was able to move in lightning speed. I mean, I have been a harsh critic of the World Bank, both in their presence and in their absence, and they know that, and it's not nothing personal to them, but it's a struggle which we've had with the World Bank and others. But I will say, as I've said publicly, that in this instance, the World Bank has really demonstrated that it has the capacity to move quickly and to respond in an efficient manner to requests from small island states like Dominica, because it is extraordinary that in less than 6 months we're able to sign an agreement with the World Bank for an amount of $65 million in less than 6 months of the negotiations. And so that speaks volumes to the commitment and the willingness of the World Bank to work with us. So the international community is with us. And I want to say to you that the allocation of these monies is not a determination by the World Bank. It's a determination by us, the government of Dominica. So they don't tell us what they want the money to be spent for. We suggest to them. So when we told them that housing is a major priority for us and agriculture, and we told them that we need to increase the amount of monies that we have assigned to the East Road because the East is a highly vulnerable part of the country, they agreed with us. They agreed with us. So the pledges are coming in as we sign agreements with them. Some of the funds have been deposited, for example, in the CDB. The Canadians are working with the CDB because of the critical mass at the CDB. The European Union funds are coming in. They've deposited some into the Treasury. There's some more to come in next couple of months. So where we are able to do things on our own by our own, we're doing it. And where the international agencies will meet us and the countries, they'll meet us and so forth. The Chinese government has committed a significant amount of funds for go to education. They've also given us some $3 million for roofing materials. The government of India has provided support to us. The government of Japan. I mean, the European Union. You go on and on, my brother. We can speak to countries that have assisted us and so forth. So I can tell you without any fear of contradiction that the regional international communities are solidly with Dominica and are rooting for Dominica and praying and hoping and doing everything humanly possible to see Dominica succeed in becoming the world's first climate resilient nation in the world. In respect to the CBI still continues to do well. I have been on the road and a couple times since the hurricane to market and to promote the program, speaking at various fora to speak about the virtues of the program and to solicit the support of the agents and the other developers. Mr. Nanton, who is the coordinator, has been on the road for many weeks, sometimes 2 weeks or 3 weeks in a row, different parts of the world promoting the program. And he's doing a very fantastic job in that. So we continue to get the support of the agents, the developers, and we thank all of them because without them, our marketing agent, the CS Global, all of these entities, all of these agents and entities are doing a fantastic job in helping us because they too recognize that this country requires the resources now more than ever, and we're very grateful to them, all of them, for the commitment to Dominica. But the program continues to do well. We continue to pray to the good Lord that we will continue to see blessings coming through it because the good Lord knows that this program has really been a lifesaver for us here in Dominica, especially since this hurricane. Because that has been able to feed us, it has been able to pay our salaries, it has been able to pay our debt, it has been able to fix our homes, it is able to provide to the farmers and to the people who lost their jobs. It's paying for the NEP and the special employment program for our friends and relatives who are 17 over. It's paying that the allowance to you, the $300 allowance to you every month. All of the NEP workers, the CBI is paying for this, and so we're grateful for it and we're doing well. Those who in this country who want to curse darkness upon us, then that's a matter for them. But I can tell to you, Senior Counsel, that the UN, with regards to the pledges, the countries, the institutions are keeping to their commitments. They keep into commitments. We obviously have to go through direct negotiations with them on the procurement processes and the projects to be financed and the feasibility studies in some of the cases, because each of them has their own special procurement process involved, and we have to follow that particular process. But our relationship with the World Bank is, I believe, second to none.
Hardest task has been, most difficult task has been in the coming years? I think that was his final question.
Well, just have to do what you have to do, and we're doing what you have to do. It is. All I would say that it is not an easy job. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy job at all. But I don't like complaining. I don't like complaining.
All right. Let us go back to the telephone on the overseas line. Good night.
Good night. Good evening, Daryl. Good evening, Clarence, and good evening, Prime Minister. How are you?
Hey, good night, comrade.
Good night. How are you? Good.
I'm doing fine, thanks.
Okay.
Prime Minister, firstly, I want to commend you on your exceptional leadership since from the time you've been a Prime Minister. But more so after Maria. Your passion, your energy, your vigor, your love for Dominica has taken you across the globe, and you have made a case for Dominica like no other I have seen. And this has resulted in the agencies and nations and foundations like the World Bank, Clinton Foundation, etc., all buying into a vision that you presented of making Dominica the first climate resilient country in the world. And I have to ask you, Prime Minister, what inspired you to come forward with this, what I consider a bold and striking idea of vision, considering Dominica's small stature on the world stage? Thank you, PM. Have a good night. I'll listen off here.
Right. Thank you. I mean, the caller has a point. I mean, I was criticized by the opposition for leaving Dominica and to go to address the United Nations. But many independent observers will tell you that in large measure it is that address which ignited the concern and the care of the international community. And I think that speech, based on what people are saying, propelled the world towards Dominica and helping Dominica. And up to today, people are still making reference to the speech and the importance of the speech. And that's to show you, Daryl, and Clarence, and the callers and listeners. The hurricane was on Monday. I addressed the United Nations on Saturday, same week. And on that Saturday, we articulated a vision for the country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of building the world's first climate resilient nation. So, even in the midst of the debris and the midst of anguish and anxiety and fear, as the leader of the country, I also had to think about the future. So we were able, in the same week of the hurricane, and at that time, I was homeless.
Yeah.
Myself, my entire family were shacking in at her parents' home. So when I left Dominica from their home. I had nowhere to stay, at least in the city. Nowhere to stay. I was homeless.
Yeah.
I went to New York with a pair of shoes that was wet inside.
Wow.
And I woke up early morning to put the shoes at the back of the fridge.
Before you went to address the UN.
Yeah, and I didn't realize boss man, you have no lights, my brother. The fridge, no fridge. Because that's what we did back in the days.
Yes.
Your shoes wet, my brother. Yeah, one pair of shoes put it in the fridge to dry. So the shoes was wet. The pair of shoes were wet. And I left Dominica with a wet pair of shoes. And I had to call friends and say, look, I'm coming in, buy me a pair of shoes, or a white shirt to address the United Nations and so on, and so forth, and a tie. So that's what it is. And I mean, so in the midst of this, I mean, all of this thing, you have to start thinking about the future very quickly. And I think people have to understand this and appreciate this. That, because most people in this circumstance would be preoccupied with their own trials and their own challenges and not be able to think of anything else. But in this circumstance, I had to put, because once the hurricane hit and I was able to leave the home, because I was home alone, my family was at my wife and 2 kids were at the parents. My mission morning was to make sure that they're alive.
Yes.
And once I went to visit them and they were alive, I just left and I hit the road. You know, so once my mind was settled on them, I just hit the road, you know, and that was it. I never turned back. You know, I did not go to the home where I was not until several weeks after the hurricane. I just never turned back. I just kept on walking, you know, just kept on walking. And that's what it is, and up to today. So, yes, caller. I mean, you know, this is extraordinary, and the UN speech, we believe, based on what independent observers saying, really catapulted the world, because many countries were hit at the same time, you know, including U.S. territories, and of course, the U.S. media would be focusing more on the U.S. territories, rightly so. You know, there's no criticism of them. That's how things are, and you just have to treat things as they are.
Okay, we lost that caller on the local line. Let's go back to the overseas line. Okay, lost that caller. Let's go back to the local line. Good night.
Hello, good evening.
Good night.
I'm calling from Roseau Central.
Yes, ma'am.
As the PM was talking about the housing of Maria, I would like to ask a question. If you have your own house and it land belongs to you, if the government still could help you get back your roof and whatever, get back a home.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sure we can assist. I'm sure we can assist. So you can reach out to, Mr. Tong or the member of parliament there, and I'm sure we can assist.
All right. Then.
Okay.
Okay. On the overseas line, good night.
Yeah, good night, man. What's up, Mr. Darren?
Good, comrade.
Good night, TM.
Yes, sir. Good night. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, good, man. Yeah, I want to compliment you for doing a very good job in Dominica, I've been following it, and I live in the Virgin Islands, and we're all in a crisis, too, So I really want to compliment you, especially on the Southeast, for what you're doing for my constituency, that is La Plaine, Boutica Dalis, man. A job well done, and I always say you always focus every time I see you. You always look focused, and you have a lot of support, man. All the taxi drivers in St. Thomas, follow you, and they're giving you thumbs up, man. And we're hoping to see you in St. Thomas too, man, PM.
I will come.
I'm listening, and a job well done, PM.
Thank you. I will come. The governor there, has been very helpful, to us, notwithstanding his own challenges there, and the people of St. Thomas, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and I'll certainly come visit sometime.
On the local line, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, my friend.
Hi.
I am so happy tonight that you are there to give us that kind of program tonight. I am so happy. I would like to thank you. I would like to thank Mr. Christian, and most important, my Prime Minister.
I keep saying I must come to visit you, I must come visit you. I keep saying I'll come visit you.
My Prime Minister, good night. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, my dear.
How was the day?
The day was fine, thank you.
Oh, I am so happy to hear from you. Oh, my Prime Minister, God will bless you. God guidance, God wishing you God guidance with you, because I know you have it very hard and tough. But we have a little thing doing for ourselves. We're trying. We need a little assistance.
Sure.
We don't hear nothing from
I will send somebody to you tomorrow morning, okay?
All right, okay.
So tomorrow, at 10 o'clock, the person will come to your home.
Okay.
Okay, so 10 o'clock tomorrow will come to you. And I will try my best to come see you before the end of the week.
All right.
Myself.
Thank you very much. I want you to do that.
Sure. So tomorrow, 10 o'clock, the person will come to your home.
Okay, my
and
darling.
You'll tell them what's required.
Okay, my dear loving son. God guidance. I wish you God guidance, and have a blessed night tonight.
Sure. Take care, my darling.
Okay.
God bless you.
God bless
you. You sung very well for your age, I mean,
okay.
I want to sing like you when I'm 50 years,
I'm 82 years.
I know you past 80, but you sung very well. You know, you're talking much better than Daryl, you know.
All right. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay then. Thank
bye.
you. So sleep well. All right. Let's go back to the overseas line. Good night.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
Darren.
Yes, good night.
Good night, Pierre.
Good night. Good
Yes,
night.
yes, sir.
I'm calling from St. Thomas.
Yeah.
I was listening, and to me, if it happened before, I didn't hear about foreign affairs. I want to talk a little about the recent Venezuela election.
Yeah.
I know for sure that Mr. Maduro has regained power, and the opposition, though they said they boycotted the election, but now they are complaining and saying that they will not recognize it. One. But from now, the American president is also saying now that they will not recognize the lawfully elected government of Venezuela, and they are now initiating to put more sanctions against the Venezuelan government. But what my take on that is, from day one after the elections in the U.S., the present U.S. president is under pressure for, as they said, the involvement of Russia in the elections. I know this is not something that maybe you might want to talk about, but it's the way you speak about one thing and yet still something else is happening. Now the other thing is that today I understood the present leader of the opposition is gaining some moment he's in the U.S. For that matter, he is being met with the Lions Club attending on the mayor of Denver, Colorado, and is the same leader of the opposition who went on CBS condemning the CBI, which raises a large amount of finance for the country. But today, double standard. He is now in the U.S. in Denver, Colorado, with a group of people trying to raise funds, I guess, for himself. Now, this I call, two-faced in my own personal term, And, I have been listening, and one thing I want to talk about is the amount of reconstruction effort that is being done, made in Dominica. I was in Dominica in February, and I know what is going on. I live in the Virgin Islands, and I can tell you, PM, people may not want to believe, but we, with the amount of funds that we have and we are getting, if we were getting the amount, you're sure the Virgin Islands is getting, we would have been exceedingly, way ahead. You understand? And you must be complimented. You must be complimented for what is being done in Dominica. Some people wouldn't want to believe there are areas in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, with more blue roofs than South Dominica.
Caller, can you start wrapping up, please?
Pardon?
Can you start wrapping up, please? We have to take many calls. Yeah.
That's what I wanted. Those are the points I just wanted to bring up. But I'm listening to you all. Very good program, and I will continue to listen. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I take note of it. I mean, we don't interfere with the internal affairs of any country, including Venezuela. Based on what we know, the elections were held within the confines of the constitution and electoral laws of Venezuela, and observers there have declared the elections to have been free and fair, and we respect that. A government is determined by its people, and if the majority of people who voted for President Maduro, then we in Dominica have no other choice but to recognize and to congratulate President Maduro and the people of Venezuela.
Back to the local line. Good night.
Yes, Mr. Pitt, good night.
Good night.
South.
Hey, Rosa South, good night.
Yeah, good night, Mr. Prime Minister.
Yes, sir, how are you?
Yeah, fine. Good night, Mr. Clarence.
Good night, man. Good night.
Mr. Prime Minister, I have a lot to say about the time that is too short. That's why I want to see you. But I just want to encourage you and tell you have good faith. I know he's a hard-working Prime Minister. That is the best we ever had in Dominica since independence. I just want to tell you to hold on strong and do what you're doing for our people, and I know you're doing it for our people. And when you give a promise to our people, I know you will try your best to fulfill your promise. And I want to tell you thank you for giving Mr. Jaiza Binwa, the hard-working senator from the Roseau South, that doing all the hard work instead of the parliamentary representative. So I just want to tell you thank you for the time all you give him to be the senator, and he's showing his worth, and he's a man of starter. And I just want to say to Mr. Jaiza Binwa to hold on strong. When they come, we will do what we have to do. And I'm working on the ground, full force, full hard with Mr. Jaiza Binwa. And Mr. Jaiza Binwa is a hard-working senator. Some people may have their different perspective towards him, but I know I watch him, and I know him, I see him in my dreams. Just like you, Mr. Prime Minister, I can remember the day when they launched you in Amba Village. You can remember the roof that come out, a wind come out from nowhere? I bear witness of your launching when Mr. Ruthie Douglas was launching with deceased. May his soul rest in peace. And there are things I see, and there are things I know. So I just want to thank you for giving Mr. Jaiza Binwa the opportunity to become a senator. And I call on the people from the Roseau South, entire Roseau South. Don't forget what Skerrit do to us. So, Roseau South, you listening? I know you listening because the Prime Minister is in the house. We have to come together and make sure we put that thing in the bag for Mr. Jaiza Binwa. Thank you and good night. Daryl, have a good night.
Okay, you two callers going forward, we're going to try to keep it compact because the PM has to leave very soon. So we're going to try to take as many calls as possible and keep it compact. Back to the telephone. Good night. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, good night.
Good night.
Yes.
Hello. PM.
My friend, Msha.
PM c'est Ruben qui là.
Msha.
Ruben, l'autre moi pas non.
Adormi depuis mon temps yo di on di PM adormi. Mon cas di ou PM ça ou ka faire ba nous Dominique, pas bon Dieu vers bon Dieu toujours vers ou. PM ba moi di ou quelque chose.
Oui.
Est-ce que j'avoue yon wat anglo? Est-ce que j'avoue yon wat anglo?
Oui, moi j'avoue ça, oui.
Vous connaissez ça?
Oui.
Vous avouez?
Oui.
So, j'avoue wat anglo, bon d'ailleurs anglo. So, tout le temps, bon d'ailleurs anglo, il t'en connaît.
Oh, ok.
Quand il y a ouvert, il plonge tête petite anglo. Il n'est c'est comme ça, Dominique, il y avait tout qui vient tirer. Dominique, en la main, UWP. Nous flotter en l'air, PM, c'est ça mon cadeau pour cela. Bon souhait, madame, toute fille aux enfants. Mon cadeau, bon souhait.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruben. I haven't heard Ruben in quite a while. We were asking about him the other day.
We asked for that fell from Portsmouth, Masley.
Yeah, Masley.
Probably he will call tonight.
Let's go back to the overseas line. Good night.
Hey, Daryl, how you doing tonight?
Hey, good, man. How are you?
Daryl, let me thank you first for getting the Prime Minister on your show. We've been trying to get him on Kairi for a long time now. I know he's a busy man, so let me just thank you. He's a busy man. Clarence, how you doing, my brother?
Good man.
PM, good night. How you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for that quick response last week. I appreciate that.
No,
thanks
that's cool.
PM, I don't know if you answered the questions because I was trying to call in, so I didn't really hear what half of the show. I know you had a team before Maria. I don't know if the engineers or I don't know how to call them, but they came down to survey. They was from America, and they came down to survey the spot for the airport, the area for the airport. Can you tell me what's going on with that? Did they come back? Do we have an area? Do you want to tell Daryl on the show tonight what area the airport is going to be? And one more question before you answer. One more question. The day after the hurricane, I know you walked from your home to town. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. PM, just tell me, as the Prime Minister of the country, how did it feel to walk down? I know you have to walk down on the cliff. The sea maybe was still rough. You had to pass through Focally and just feel like, just everything was just blown away. How did it feel? You have like 72,000 people depending on you, and just walking down and just seeing the country is just, real, like a bad shape. You know what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm. All right.
So I'll hang up. I'll listen to your response because I know that you have other callers. Have a blessed night, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Well, as we indicated, we had engaged an American firm which has tremendous experience in airport development, both in the Caribbean and elsewhere, to assist us in the feasibility studies for the airport, and they came up with a preferred site in the Woodford Hill area. I can give more details about it at some other point, but it's in the general Woodford Hill area, Wesley Woodford Hill area. And we were really at the point at the hurricane to move the next phase with the actual design. They had already given us conceptual drawings of the airport, and we had to do some more geotechnical surveys and studies. So we were about to contract. We were able to contract an international firm to assist us because they would have to bring in some huge equipment to do some geotechnical studies and surveys of the area to look at the soil and the soil types and so forth. So that's where we were at the time of the hurricane. But as I said earlier, my friend, we proceeded with the setting aside of $5 million each month, and that started prior to the hurricane, continues post the hurricane, of $5 million every month, US dollars every month, to go towards an international airport development account or fund. So far, and by the end of this month, God's willing, we will have about $162 million EC dollars in this account, all towards the international airport. Once we stabilize things insofar as housing is concerned and other aspects of our recovery, we will certainly return to the process relating to the construction of the international airport in Dominica.
All right, excellent. Let's go back to the local line. Good night.
Good night again.
Good night.
PM, good night again.
Hi, good night to you.
Again, I want to congratulate you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And as we always say, we are always praying for you.
Thank you.
But I would like to find out, we are into the hurricane season. I know nothing cannot be done this year. But I want to find out if you have plans in your next year's budget for the construction of the Emsall Bridge.
Yes, the Emsall Bridge, the design has been completed. The design was done by a local Dominican engineer who is resident in the United States, as a matter of fact. So that design is completed. The ministry was tasked with the responsibility of designing the approaches to the bridge, because as you know, the bridge, the river there is very low, so the bridge had to be built in a particular way, so that the water could flow freely below the bridge. So you have to now address the issue of the approaches, both on Emsall side and the Facet side. I was told by the minister, Dr. Mcintyre, last week when the cabinet inquired about the status of these approaches, that he advised the cabinet that the CTO advised him that the designs have been completed. So I'm hoping to get an updated report on this, written report on this before the end of the week, so that we can move to the tender process. So we'll be moving to the tender process very soon for the Emsall Bridge. But the design for the bridge was completed. The minister has advised me that the approaches have been completed by the design of the approaches has been completed by staff based on what the CTO told him. But once I get the final report, I will confirm this as been final. And once we do that, then we will proceed immediately for the tender for the award of a contract for the construction of the bridge.
We go back to the overseas line. Good evening.
Good evening to you, comrade. Good evening to you, Clarence. And good evening to you, PM.
Yeah, go ahead, comrade.
I want to say thank you very much, PM, for being the Prime Minister of Dominica in such a time like that. Because I thought when Mario struck that the task was so great that I was afraid, rather say I was afraid of what's going to happen. But I must say that you are doing a very good job. My question to you tonight is on Mr. Linton have been writing letters all over the place to international communities. Has any one of the letters that Linton wrote, either to the World Bank or to any of the international communities, has it affected Dominica in any way or sort of form that you know of?
The fact remains, the fact remains, the international community deals with us on a daily basis. People know who we're dealing with. People know that we do things in a transparent manner. So these letters Linton writes or up and down, people, I don't think are taking note of it anymore, because really he's been declared a nuisance by many.
Local line, good night.
But Daryl, I'm gonna have to leave.
Yes, so we'll take final call.
Yeah, my wife is not here, and I have to take care of the two kids to bed.
Yes.
They're not well. They have the flu.
Oh, okay.
And I've just been messaged to say that my daughter has a fever, so I really have to run.
All right. So PM, we're going to allow you to say just the final words for tonight, and then.
But I am very happy to be here tonight, and I will come back once Daryl and Clarence invite me. I'll certainly come back, and I look forward to continue the discussion. The next time Daryl will give the greater part of the program to questions. I would like to hear from the listeners on the questions or suggestions or ideas which they may have. So I am prepared to come back the soonest. Maybe next week.
Next week,
if possible. So that, but I would like to dedicate the entire time or most of the time
to calls
and questions on any subject matter the listeners would like to raise with me as Prime Minister. So I will, once my schedule permits, I'll come next week, but I'll confirm with you by Friday. But I really have to leave because my daughter has a slight fever.
Yes, we can understand.
My wife is not there, and I have to take full responsibility.
Yes, so hope she gets well soon. And PM, thank you for joining us.
She's a fighter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us here.
Good night, everybody, and thanks for having me.
All right, we're going to allow the PM to exit at this time. And of course, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit, the parliamentary representative for Vic, is joining us tonight, but he has had to leave, and we understand why, and we know the calls are coming in. But Clarence, a very good program indeed.
It's a very good program. Excellent.
Yes, and happy to join us, and the PM is saying he may be back sometime next week.